tonight we are doing a new yoga pose. So we're going to work our way up to that, and it's going to be Warrior 3. So before we've done Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, if you remember, I can kind of show you those. So Warrior 1 was where you're here in your pose, and Warrior 2 was here. And so Warrior 3 is a balancing pose. And we're eventually, this is like one of my worst poses ever. I have a hard time getting into Warrior 3, but we're going to break it down and modify it. But just so you know where we're going with it tonight, it's going to be a balancing pose, like here, okay? So we'll work our way up to that and see what we can get into. I also have a new breath for us to try. I don't think we've done this one before. Maybe I'm wrong. But you can just make yourself comfortable. And I want you to do this one seated. So if you're lying down, go ahead and stand up or sit up for me. And you can close your eyes. And just start to get into your natural breath. Reaching the crown of your head towards the ceiling. You can do this either sitting on the floor, sitting on a blanket, or sitting in a chair. And start to reach your sit bones down towards your support. Elongating through the spine. And really start to send your inhale into the belly. Exhale, let yourself release it. Blow up the belly. Let it release. Good. So this breath is called Breath of Fire. And we're gonna get into it. It's more of like a energetic breath. You're really gonna pick up the energy, and it's more forceful than a lot of the other breaths that we've done. So as you're doing this, it's kind of like a cleansing breath. And so if you're on your first few days of your menstrual cycle, then I would opt out of this just because there's a lot going on within your organs already. So just take it easy. But it's going to be, I'll just do the breath really quick and then I'll walk you through it a little bit. So it's going to be an inhale and exhale through the nose. And I'm going to back up so you can see my belly a little bit. So it's a So as you're taking that inhale and you have that forceful exhale, it's kind of like a vacuum, and the inhale just automatically fills back up. And you can feel that pulsing through the belly. So it feels funny, it looks funny, and it might take you a little bit of time to get used to the breath, like to find your rhythm of what works for you, but you can just try it. So take a big inhale, exhale forcefully, and you suck that belly in. Inhale. So it's only the first inhale that you really take, and then it's the forceful exhales, and then the inhales just kind of come until you need to take that big inhale again. So inhale, exhale forcefully. Take a big inhale if you need. Refill. One more round here. Take a couple cleansing breaths. Inhale in through the nose. Open mouth, exhale. Maybe you feel like your body is a lot warmer. You've created that heat, that fire within your body. Hence the breath of fire. So from here, if you are sitting on a chair, you can scoot to the edge of your chair. We're going to come into our seated arch and flatten, change up the dynamic a little bit with our arch and flatten. And we'll first come into our arch. So rolling the pelvis forward, creating that small arch in the low back. So your hip bones at the front of you should start to roll forward towards the knees. And then easy does it, pelvis comes back, spine comes back to neutral. Again, roll the pelvis forward. Feel that small arch in the low back. And then maybe when I get into it a little bit more, you start to pull the shoulder blades back towards each other. Feel that arch come up through the whole spine. Shoulders and pelvis roll back to neutral. Spine follows. Again, roll the pelvis, roll the shoulders. Maybe a slight press of the head back. Feel those muscles along each vertebrae start to contract. And come back to your neutral. Ooh, I got a lot of spasms going on there tonight. All right, let's go into our flatten. So this time you're gonna kind of let the pelvis roll back, like you're tucking your tail. And this one, it feels really nice for me seated to let my shoulders just kind of automatically come in. And then easy does it, set up back to neutral. And again, this is a good one that you can watch yourself if you can see yourself on your camera, or to practice in front of a mirror to see if you're actually letting yourself sit all the way up to neutral, or if you're still pausing here or somewhere that is not your complete neutral, whether that be you like to come in forward or you like to over exaggerate. So, you don't want the posture of like stand up straight shoulder, right? Where their shoulders back into that arch. That's not good posture either. So you need to find the happy medium between your arch and your flatten. So come into your flatten one more time. Roll the pelvis back. And then find your neutral. And then just go back and forth a couple times where you feel like there's not as much energy being used to find the correct alignment, because you're letting the structure of your body and the bones align so that you don't have to use as much effort. Okay. As you're sitting down still, we're gonna see if we can, actually I lied. We're gonna go, let's lay on the floor. So you can come onto your yoga mat or your blanket, down onto your back. Let's let the legs go long as you're lying here. take a little assessment of how you're feeling. So today I saw that quote that I posted on Facebook about how you've been carrying the mountain that you're actually supposed to climb. And so I just want you to think about all those little things, or a big thing, that you might be overthinking, you might be over-exerting in areas that you don't need to. So maybe you can let yourself detach from some of those expectations that you have set for yourself. And as you start to let go of those things, see if you release any tension in your body. Sometimes we like to see if we can swim upstream for no reason when we can just let it go and float down the river. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. So, as we come into this next movement, one which I find more difficult than others, just based on my patterns, I'm going to let my body just do what it feels like it needs to do, rather than fight it and get mad or upset with myself. So go ahead and bring the feet to the mat. Knees are about hip distance apart. And I'm just going to let whatever happens happen and be okay with it. We're going to come into our hip hikes. So let's start with the left hip. This hip is going to come up towards the armpit. So it's going to be a slight hip hike. And as I hike, I'm going to keep my hips even, so I'm not coming into an arch and I'm not coming into a flat. It's just this lateral movement of my hip up, my side, and back down. So if I imagine my tailbone on a swivel, I'm just twisting, rotating the tray. Having this left hip come up towards my armpit and back down. One more time. Good. Let's do the other side. Hike that right hip up. As that right hip comes up, the left hip is going down. Couple more times. Notice if your body wants to come into an arch. If it does, go smaller. Good. Maybe take it back and forth a couple times. This one feels really nice for me to start to tease out any of those kinks I have in my low back as I start to go back and forth. So maybe you notice some of those yummy feelings for you as we go through these movements. Okay, let's come into a quick bridge or a foot press, pressing your feet into the ground. You feel that energy through the feet, up the ankles, shins, knees, hips, spine. And maybe this is all you do. This feels really nice. So you want to hike up the hips a little bit. You can lift, or maybe go into a full bridge. And then come back down. Release the pressure in the feet. Let's do another hip movement. So this time, this left hip is going to come down towards the floor. So again, another tricky movement for my mind to start to wrap around what is actually supposed to happen. You're going to drop this left hip as the right hip goes up towards the ceiling. So your hips are working in opposite directions. And it actually helps if I press my right foot slightly into the ground, my left hip dips down towards the ground. So since I'm pressing my right foot into the ground, my right hip lifts, left hip goes down. Gentle release. So I don't want this to be a huge movement. I want it to be micro. As small as you can. See if you can get that left hip to go down towards the floor. And as slowly as you can, release it. One more time. Good. Let's do the other side. Dropping the right hip towards the floor. To drop my right hip, I'll let that rotation of the hip happen by pressing my left foot gently into the floor. So my left hip is going down towards the floor, right hip slightly up. One more time here. And then you can take it back and forth. So this one, you can imagine yourself doing like a sassy walk as your hips start to sway side to side. And you can feel that different pressure in the feet, maybe, as you rotate through the hips. Beautiful. Shake it out. Let's come into a foot press again. Pressing the feet into the floor, or maybe lifting the hips up into a bridge. Cool. Rolling yourself onto your belly. I have packed away my blanket, my other blanket, so I'm going to use this to lie on. But again, as a recap, if it's uncomfortable or you want to make it more comfortable to lie on your stomach, you can place a blanket from your shoulders to your hips. If it's more comfortable to place it at your bra line to your hips, you can do that. Or find like pillows or blankets under the shoulders as well. Okay? Excuse me, making yourself as comfortable as possible. Let's see, I'm gonna get a little creative here too. Okay. So, this is going to be practice for our warrior 3 to get this back leg up. And so maybe it's more comfortable if you stack some thicker pillows or multiple blankets up so that your torso is a little higher off the ground so you have some extra room to play with the leg a little bit. So, you can rest however you want with your upper body. We're just going to focus on the lower body for now. So, with this right glute, I want you to see if you can start to squeeze the right glute by itself. And if not, give it a little tapping, waking up the nerves. Maybe you clench both butt cheeks together. Good. And now lift the right leg. When you lift the right leg, what happens? Are you lifting the leg with your low back or with your glute? Hopefully with your glute, okay? So let's break it down. I want you to engage the right glute first and then see if you can lift the leg. As you do that, you engage the quad, your thigh, and then maybe you flex this right foot. So now you have your whole leg engaged, from the glute to your toes. And let it go. Couple more times. Engage the right glute, lift the leg, flex the foot, and now I can have this leg fully engaged, have total control, and relax it. One more time here. Glute, engage, flex the toe, and now I can have this leg lifted. Maybe it's not off the ground. Maybe you just feel that contraction. That's great. And relax. Okay. Let's do the other side. Getting this left side ready. See if it can engage just the left side. Maybe you have to give it a little tap. Maybe you have to squeeze both. Okay. Squeeze the left glute, lift the leg, flex the foot if you can. So when you do this, you should also feel your belly muscles start to engage. Feeling those abdominals engage for your stability so that you stay centered and don't start to weeble wobble. Relax. Engage the left glute, lift the left leg to where it's comfortable, maybe flex the foot, and feel your core engaged. So when I say your core, you should also feel your pelvic floor and your belly muscles engaged. So it's like a corset all the way up. One more time. Left glute, lift the leg to where it's comfortable, flex the foot, feel the core. Relax. Good. Taking your time, we're going to come up to standing pose. Good. Taking your time, shake it out. Do any movements that you need. Okay. We're going to come into chair pose. So I'll give you options. You could have like a pillow or a blanket or whatever. Squeeze that between your legs so that you have that engagement between the legs as you come into chair pose. You can hold on to something in chair pose so that you don't fall over. But same thing here. We're going to start to engage the core, engage the glutes, and start to come into our little squat. Making sure that the knees stay behind the toes. If your knees are jutting out in front of the toes, come out of it a little bit. You could also use a wall and do like a wall sit with your chair, engaging everything here. And then come out of it, sorry. I made you hold that for a little bit. Okay, one more time. baby squat, chair pose. Inhale, lift it up. Right? Good strength building here. Okay. Kick out the feet. And let them fall under your hips, toes pointing straight out. We're going to come into a standing plank pose. So, like plank on your hands and your feet. We're going to do that standing and get all of those muscles that you do on the floor engaged standing, so it's a lot less pressure on the joints, okay? From here, your feet, you're going to pretend like you're standing on newspaper, and you're going to start to externally rotate your feet. So you're going to start to rotate your feet without actually moving them out towards your pinky toes. So you can feel like you're ripping the newspaper, rotating your feet. And as you rotate your feet, it automatically firms up the glutes, the quads, and the inner thighs. So as you're opening the legs, rotating like your femur that runs through the thigh, you're rotating that on the hip. You're opening up space for the hips and the muscles that run along here. Relax. Shake out the glutes. Let's do that one more time. Rotate the feet. Have that external rotation. Feel the glutes engaged. Feel the quads. Like, my legs are burning as I'm standing here doing this. I can feel them starting to shake. That's what we want. Relax. Shake it out. Okay. Letting the legs relax for a moment. Start to engage the core. So start to pull up on the pelvic floor like, imagine an elevator. The muscles start to contract nice and slow up the pelvic floor into the abdominals. Like someone is going to come punch you in the stomach. Tighten up. Good. Let yourself relax. One more time. Tighten up the core. Pelvic floor, abdominals. Having that core sit 360. Relax. Good. Alright, last part is the arms and the shoulders. So, you bring your arms out in front of you. And like you're like squeezing lemons, you're going to start to rotate the hands and the arms like a rolling pin out towards the pinky side. And as you rotate like the rolling pin, start to pull your shoulder blades back towards your spine. And as you do this, you kind of set the shoulders, set the pecs, and then relax. Okay? Let's do all three parts together. Feet are under the hips. Start to rotate those legs. The feet stay planted. You just feel them energetically start to go. Glutes, quads, engage the core. Engage the shoulders. Plank. Release. You could try this at a wall. Maybe you start to go at an angle, having just a little bit of extra pressure. So you're rotating the legs, engage the core, set the shoulders. Plank pose. You're like a pro, you can go on the floor. I won't stop you. And release. Good. Okay. We're ready for next move. It's going to be kind of the same thing as when we were lying on the floor, engaging the glute, and finding this kickback, okay? So, again, you can hold onto the wall, you can hold onto a chair, find what you need to stable yourself. This isn't like a balancing pose yet, okay? We're just working on getting the engagement of this. So I'd much rather you have something to hold on to than lack the engagement, like in the purpose of this pose, okay? So with the right leg, just kick it back onto your toe a little bit and start to engage this right glute, okay? As you engage this right glute, you can feel it through the quad, you can feel your back starting to engage a little bit, and then maybe you can lift the toe off the ground and feel how this left leg is starting to stabilize you. Back down. Okay? Again, kick the leg behind you, squeeze the right glute, relax. Okay, now we're gonna get into the balance. Squeeze the right glute, and as you start to, actually, let's pause. Okay, so from here, let's just take a couple tic-tacs forward. So both feet are on the ground, and start to hinge at the hips a couple times. We'll get these sweet babies warmed up a little bit. So you can go against the wall if you would like. I like to place my fingers at that hip crease so I can feel where I'm starting to hinge at. Keep it a neutral back. Beautiful. Okay. Now we're ready. Okay? So your left leg is strong. Right foot kicks back a little bit. I'm holding on to my hip crease at my left leg. And as I start to engage this right glute, maybe I lift it up. At the rate that I lift this right leg up, I start to lean forward. Warrior 3. Okay. And then you can just practice it a couple times, okay? Go at your own pace, play around with it, see how you can do. You can place a chair or have a wall out in front of you here as you start to go into it. In Warrior 3, though, you want to keep your hips even like this way. So I don't want you to roll your hip up like this. Keep your both hips, headlights, pointing down towards the floor. If that makes sense. So here's my headlights. They're both pointing this way in the same direction. So engage the glute. Okay, I'm like the worst one at this. So no shame. Still a good one to practice. I'm gonna get better.
Allie, are you keeping your left leg straight or keeping it bent?
Oh, good question. You never want to like lock out your leg, so your supporting leg, I have a slight bend to it, so I'm not like totally here, but I'm not like in chair pose. So just to like, so that you're buoyant.
Oh, it's so teddy bear, look at that.